from the Gobi Desert. And it's really intense. Well, the guy's going to come over tomorrow to Fabian's at 1 o'clock, and we're going to hang with the skull some more. Yeah, it's like belonged to Genghis Khan, perhaps.
Oh, wow.
So there's a lot of heavy energy. A bunch of psychics were working on it this weekend, and you know, one guy's very sensitive. Like, there's things there that people shouldn't see, but there's also an opportunity for healing. You know, so the more darkness and the more opportunity to give love and such. So yeah, we're gonna play with the skull.
At 1 tomorrow? Does Laura have to work?
Yeah, it's just gonna be me and Fabian.
Yeah.
Okay. We're gonna set up a crystal grid with some selenite and stuff and work with it.
Just the skull and your skull and Alfred?
Just, well, no.
Alfred, is that who named it?
That's
Nah,
Laura.
Alfred's
No, he named.
Laura, yeah, there was one skull here that Laura named Alfred. Well, she didn't name it. The skull was like, Alfred. She's like, what? And then I looked up Alfred, and do you remember what it was? It means counselor. Huh? Yeah. Because there was like 13 skulls or something, and it's like, no, 7. And he said, like, we are the Council of 7. Because Laura picks up on messages, and she's like, what the heck's going on? But yeah, so today we're just going to jump in with a bunch of stuff. So last week was the first chakra, right? Survival. So have you heard of Maslow and his hierarchy of needs and desires? It's actually a hierarchy of motivation, which are kind of what chakras are. So they're different motivational centers. So some people might come from a second chakra place, or from a root chakra place, or from a heart place, or from a very intuitive third eye place, or a crown place. But the ultimate goal for someone who's aware and enlightened is to operate all the chakras simultaneously, but from a higher center. So in other words, we don't want to, if we're in the second chakra, and that's just where we come from, and that's about sex, money, fear. It's about being a martyr if we're in the dysfunctional part of the chakra, or being the empress or the emperor, in charge and responsible for our own well-being and happiness. So in Maslow's motivational pyramid, it starts with, at the bottom, survival. So it's kind of like chakras, in a way. It's a pyramid. And unfortunately, most people live in the bottom of the pyramid with just their basic needs, trying to survive. So our goal is to kind of think of the pyramid as a form filling up with water gradually. It starts from the bottom. So we kind of want to fill it up, you know, and then gradually get to the rarefied place at the top of the pyramid. But we're in our 7th chakra. We have awareness of everything. We embody everything, but at the same time, we're not that. We're not that form. We can step outside of it with the neutral meditative mind, which is the third eye, and just go like, oh, okay. So we're not connected to that form to make our choices. We're going to talk just a little bit about energy fields. And the energy field of that crystal skull event was really intense. I mean, you know, the people that would get up to talk about the crystal skulls, they would say, yes, the crystal skulls are very intense. The crystal is very intense, you know? And this is a crystal age that we live in. So the technology behind cell phones and computers is crystal technology. And the earth is a crystalline being, and so are we. We're basically big crystals. And there's energy fields around pyramids. And there's pyramids all around the earth, and they're like energy vortexes. But it goes beyond just something like, if you can picture pyramids all around with like lines of energy running to them. Because there's a universal field of energy. And you know, scientists know this. Just like if you think of like the sheath, the atmosphere around the earth. Right? Well, we have a similar one around us. But it's called the etheric field. Right? And so each individual has one. And, you know, Curlian photography can pick up on the auric field, you know, the 7 chakras, and then the 8th. But the etheric field feeds the chakras and feeds the auric body. So there's the universal field that's all energy. It's all like right here, all around us, there's subatomic particles. right? And we're made up of atoms, moving at incredible rates of speed. And we have 5 senses, but we have some scientific instruments which can actually measure things that we can't see with our eyes. But even that's tiny, like nuclear fields and whatnot. So there's this etheric field that separates us so we can be an individual energetically from the rest of the universal field. And then this etheric field feeds all the chakras. Right? And then these chakras, through whatever we feel and whatever we think, distributes the energy throughout the body. There's 72,000 nadis going, not naughty, but nadis going throughout the body. And they run parallel with the nervous system. There's 72,000 nerves in the body. And they run parallel. They're etheric lines of energy, and they feed us life force. And so our chakras, depending upon where we come from, feeds back into the etheric field, and that's who we are, and that's how we accept universal energy. So if we're like off balance in any one of our chakras, then we're not going to be getting everything that we need to raise our consciousness, to learn the lessons we're meant to learn in this lifetime. So chakras have been around for thousands of years, and it's a way to teach us, to allow us to grow and evolve as much as we possibly can. Okay? So I'm just going to talk a little bit about the second chakra before we jump in with a whole bunch of stuff for the second chakra. One of the greatest things we can do for the second chakra is Sacral. In fact, it's the most powerful Kriya in all of the 8.4 million Kriyas in yoga. So we're going to do a bunch of that today. But if you think about, like, okay, religion, for instance, right? Well, let's just say cults. When there's a cult, usually the cult leader will try to control the cult followers' sacral center or their sex center. You know, give away all your possessions, and then, or if you look at religion, like the Catholic Church, for instance, like, oh, you know, you're a sinner, you have sexual impulses and stuff like that. No, but the most powerful energy in the whole planet is the power to procreate. Sex is the way that we procreate. And so the creator or whatever made sure that things were going to be around. So he made sure this was a very powerful energy, but it's a very creative energy. The second chakra is more of our unconscious creativity. A lot of artists can come from here, drawing on the collective unconscious and stuff. And the more conscious creativity comes from the throat chakra. So they kind of work together. So as I said, like, cult leaders will try to, or, you know, religions will try to kind of control this. Because if you can control the most powerful energy and direct it back on the person, then you can kind of use it against them. But there's other ways to use. You know, it's not just about controlling people. But if you look at society, there's a lot of archetypes. Like the Don Juan, you know, archetype. Marilyn Monroe, Brad Pitt, Eros, the love goddess and goddesses. There's all these archetypes. But if you look at billboards, if you look at commercials, you'll notice they're a lot of times trying to sell things with sex. Because it's the most active center that we have, right? So things are targeted in that way all the time. And also, this is the emotional center. And so addictions can come from this place. Our seeking of pleasure, or to give pleasure, or to escape, or to transform. And sex, drugs, and rock and roll are some of the easiest ways to escape through this center. So there's two archetypes I want to talk about before we jump into, because as we go later on in the class, we're going to do some things to work with these archetypes. One is the martyr, which I mentioned earlier, and the emperor, empress. So the martyr is usually something familial, ancestral. It's passed on through family lineages, through the genetics, it seems. But we know some people like that, all of us, where they're the sacrificial lamb. And when this chakra, the second chakra, is imbalanced, it's like we give up our dream, we sacrifice ourselves and our own happiness for somebody else. You know? And I'm not talking about a sacrifice like, oh, let me help this person out. I'm not going to go catch that movie. Instead, I'm going to help this person out. I'm talking about somebody not taking responsibility anymore for their well-being and their happiness, and sacrificing that for somebody and giving away their light. And then what happens with that is that person expects the other person to do the same, because they don't feel worthy of love. So they feel they have to manipulate the other person to get the love that they want. Like, oh, I'm sacrificing myself. Now it's your turn. Go ahead. So, and nobody likes to feel that way. But when we see people like that, there's two things. There's compassion and there's pity. Right? You don't want to have pity for the person. Like, oh, that poor person. They're suffering all the time. Oh, But with compassion, we don't ignore who they are, but we don't try to fix them, we don't try to change them. We let them own who they are. But we have to keep our own boundaries. It's like with the etheric field, we have our own boundaries. Or the earth has its own boundaries, so it can be itself. So we can't get sucked into somebody else's sacrificing. We can give them love, though. All kinds of love. I guess I started from the end of class, which is interesting. So what we're going to do to start out here is work with the chakras. We're going to warm up all of the chakras. And we're going to work a little bit with the auric field. And then we're going to start transmuting the sexual energy up the spine. Because that's really what it's all about. Energy is energy. So whatever the most powerful energy is, let's tap into that. And let's use it for the greatest good. Right? Let's not label it, oh, it's this, or it's that, or it's good, or it's bad. It's just all energy, right? So like tantric, a lot, you hear about tantric. And that's, one of the oldest yogas there is. It's Leia, tantric, and Kundalini, the oldest yogas. But tantric's not just about sex either, which people think. There's white, black, and red tantric. The red tantric is the one that people think of. But there's white tantric, where you're just raising up the positive energy. And, you do Venus Kriyas with other people, and circulate energy with each other. It's about healing and stuff like that. So we're going to raise some energy after we warm up. But let's first tune in to all the masters that there's ever been. The golden chain, all the masters that are here now, all the masters that will ever be. Let's warm up those 72,000 nerve endings in the hands. It's okay with you guys. It's good to have our socks off, because in Kundalini Yoga we work with the 72,000 nerve endings in the feet as well. So we're going to have a tall spine. Our chest is lifted, chin is slightly in. And we're going to push our hands together, about 6 pounds of pressure up against the sternum. Again, chest lifted, chin slightly in, shoulder blades rolling down the back. Eyes are at the third eye center, ½ inch above the eyebrows, ½ inch in. So I'll take a deep breath through the nose. And exhale. Inhale.